This is Tech Talk with your host, Tom Dioria. Tom will spend the next hour making your life with technology a little easier with explanations of the different aspects of today's technology and how it can benefit your home, small office, or enterprise. Now here's your host, Tom Dioria.
Welcome to IMI-TechTalk on this third Sunday of September. It's September 16th, 2012, and Happy New Year to all our Jewish listeners. It's Rosh Hashanah starting at sundown tonight, and this week was the 11th anniversary of 9/11/2001, so we're going to talk a little bit about that during our Week in Review. We're on at 6 p.m. in the New York listening area and 3 p.m. in Arizona, and we're live from our New York offices. We're going to be discussing the new iPhone 5, which I understand is really the sixth iPhone, and its competition with one of our favorite guests, Tony Bradley. I'm Tom Dioria. I'm the CEO of Information Methods Incorporated, and together with our weekly guests, our show will help our listeners, whether a business or home technology user, make better use of all aspects of technology. Now, just in case you're a first-time listener, Tech Talk provides you with a review of last week's most significant events in technology. We start with our increased coverage of New York's technology scene, and we follow this with our industry-wide report, which could contain information on conference announcements by vendors, new releases of software or equipment, or new contract opportunities. One of our guests follows this for many aspects of business and industry, and if you wish us to consider a topic for a future show, you can email your suggestions to Tech Talk. That's TECHTALK at IMI-US.com. We'll get back to you pretty quickly. Anytime after our show introduction, please give us a call or send an email message with questions on today's topic or anything else that we might be able to help you with. You can call 277-KFNX, that's 277-5369. And if you're outside the 602 listening area, call us toll-free at 1-866-536-1100. You can send us email questions during the show at that email address I just gave you, techtalk at IMI-US.com. We monitor it throughout the show, and if we don't get you a question on today's show, we'll definitely answer it and possibly put it on next week's. We're also being simulcast on the web, so if you want to listen to us live and you don't have your radio handy, you can go to KFNX's website, which is 1100kfnx.com. And if you'd like to listen to this show or any of our past shows, we have them all archived. You can go to our website, which is IMI-US.com. In the upper right-hand column, click on Tech Talk, then on Archive. All the shows are there. You can download them, send them to your friends, listen to them as many times as you want. It's free, so please feel free to avail yourself of that. And please call any time during the show, and we'll try and get you on as quickly as possible. As I mentioned, our first segment is our Week in Review, but our increased coverage of technology events in New York City and around the world. Compiled by Dave Brandon, Dan Dioria, and Jose Batista. And I just mentioned to you that the topic of today's show is the iPhone, so that's the big technology event of this week, but I'm not going to tell you much about that in the Week in Review. We'll wait until Tony's on the show and tell you about the changes and what the competition's doing. We have a couple of articles here about turning old phones into charitable donations. One comes from Dear Abby in the Journal News, and the letter to Dear Abby says, "My son is a career soldier, Army Rangers Airborne, and he's proud of him. And during his 15 years of active duty, has been involved in every action around the world. And the greatest gift I have been given started with an idea conceived by two high school students in Massachusetts. The program is called Cell Phones for Soldiers." And these are the basics. The old cell phones are donated and then sold to a recycler, and with the money that the phone cards are purchased and donated to soldiers all over the world. 80% of the calls home by active duty soldiers are made by using these cards. So check that out. And we also have another one here, turning old phones into charitable donations. It's a Brooklyn-based startup, Exchange My Phone, which will erase all the data from your phone and then either recycle it or refurbish it for donation to your choice of 765,000 U.S. charities. So check them out, Exchange My Phone. Okay, the NYPD recently released a set of guidelines for using social media during investigations. The memo, according to the Daily News, was issued by Police Commissioner Ray Kelly and allows officers involved in social media to use aliases and a department-issued laptop. Scouring the Internet can tip off police to possible threats or even give cops an advantage in conducting undercover work. However, Christopher Dunn, legal director of NYU's Civil Liberties Union, thinks that the police use of Internet could cause issues. He said, "We worry about the ease with the police can use deceit on the Internet to monitor private communications. Police infiltration of social media should be closely regulated." And another lawyer, Jay Einstein, a lawyer who issued a decree about how police investigate political activity, believes that using an alias defies his guidelines. The police has defended its use of the Internet, saying that the information gathered comes from public sources. Personally, and not the opinion of KFNX, but personally I think the cops should do whatever they need to do to catch the bad guys out there. The New York Times tells us that founders of the New Jersey-based brokerage firm Themis Trading are taking aim at Wall Street practice of high-frequency trading. Their book, Broken Markets, How High-Frequency Trading and Predatory Practices on Wall Street Are Destroying Investor Confidence in Your Portfolio, that's a heck of a title, details how HFT rigs the markets in favor of big money players. Wall Street favors the practice because it's faster and lowers transaction costs. Algorithms, formulas dictate stock price, not the market view of the company being traded. HFT firms are also privy to prices before smaller traders, making it next to impossible for smaller firms like Themis to execute trades at the listed exchange price. I'm sure that's been going on for a long time. Bottom Line Personal tells us some useful websites: Hurricane Watch, current activity forecast, emergency planning, and other information on weather.com/weather/Hurricane Central. Disaster Insurance Help, how to get problems resolved after wildfires, floods, tornadoes, and other catastrophes. uphelp.org/programs/roadmap to recovery. Medical product safety, up-to-date information from the FDA on cosmetics, dietary supplements, drugs, vaccines, etc. FDA.gov/safety/medwatch. Quick and easy pill ID. Enter the imprint, shape, or color to identify a prescription or over-the-counter drug. WebMD.com/pill-identification/default HTM. And we'll put these all up on our website, so if you didn't get them, you can get them. And then Internet Lost and Found, jewelry and metal objects, lostmystuff.net, cameras, ifoundyourcamera.net, kids love objects, lostmylovey.com, and airport lost and found contacts, tsa.gov. Okay, the Long Island Tech Comets is a new Long Island tech startup incubator accelerator and has recently started accepting applications for its program. The program is called the Long Island Tech Connected Association, mentoring exciting tech startups, and was created by the Long Island Software and Tech Network. We have a lot of long titles today. The program will select 3 Long Island startup IT companies and will provide them with free office space for 6 months at the LI Long Island Tech Mall, as well as technology, legal, accounting, and marketing guidance. The steering committee of the program consists of 12 successful people in the Long Island business community, as well as several high-profile companies as sponsors. And you can get some more information about that by going to litechcomments.org. Okay, Acer and Alibaba's cloud computing unit is planned to launch the Acer Cloud Mobile A800 smartphone using Alibaba's mobile operating system, but when journalists showed up for the event, they were not allowed to enter the venue, and the Alibaba cloud computing official said the launch had been canceled due to internal reasons. Later, Alibaba's unit released a statement saying Acer had faced pressure from Google and pulled out of the launch event. China is set to become the world's largest smartphone market in 2012, with Google's Android mobile operating system having the dominant share of the market. It's pretty interesting. Okay, we have something else here from Bottom Line Personal that may be of personal interest to you. And we found out here that fan club websites often offer members early access to tickets, which makes it easier to get the cheapest seats. American Express, Chase, and Citibank may offer credit card holders easy access and/or preferred seating. Citibank announced that customers can use their Thank You Rewards points to pay for tickets at livenation.com, a concert search engine. Search engines such as fansnap.com and SeatGeek.com allow you to compare prices for tickets being sold at sites such as StubHub.com and RazorGator.com. Prices of these secondary market tickets tend to fall in the last 48 to 72 hours before a show. And finally, hotels may start charging for Wi-Fi. Some chains that now provide free Wi-Fi are giving customers the option of paying extra for more bandwidth to speed up their Internet use. Some chains are considering charging for Wi-Fi in the first place because increased customer use of the Internet is costing them a lot of money. What a surprise. Okay, and let's see. The last thing we have here is Microsoft updated its Visual Studio software so that IDE reflects many of the changes that challenge developers, including mobility and cloud computing. For Visual Studio 2012, Microsoft has prepared the IDE to work with the company's new Windows 8 operating system for tablets, PCs, and mobile devices. For the back-end, the devices will be able to communicate with Windows Server 2012 or Microsoft's Windows Azure Cloud Service. The company has also responded to changes in the development community, taking considerable effort to prepare Visual Studio for continuous integration environments, which speeds the development process for complex software projects. Okay, we're going to take a break. We're going to get to our guest, Tony Bradley, and talk to you about the iPhone 5 and its competitors. Please stay tuned. We'll be right back after these messages.
Information Methods Incorporated is a leader in construction technology management. At IMI, we specialize in all areas of high-tech construction, including data centers, 311 and 911 operation centers, as well as the consolidation of public safety, operations, and administration into a single facility. Regardless of the project size or phase, IMI has the tools and experience to add value at every step of the project. From initiation to controlling and closing, we work with you to ensure your next high-tech facility is ready to provide customers with the right technology at the right place and time for now and years to come. Visit our website to see how IMI can turn your high-tech facility project from headache to success. www.imi-us.com. Information Methods Incorporated, the leader in construction technology management, www.imi-us.com.
Welcome back to IMI's Tech Talk on this September 16th, 2012. Happy Rosh Hashanah out there. As I mentioned to you before the break, we're going to be talking to you today about the iPhone 5, which was released this week, and its competition. And our guest is Tony Bradley. Tony is a freelance tech writer and author of the Network blog and a column for PCWorld. He focuses on technology from a business perspective and has established a reputation for being able to translate tech speak into plain English that the rest of us can easily understand. Tony has been recognized as a Microsoft MVP for 7 consecutive years, and he is certified as a CISSP-ISSAP. Tony, thanks for taking the time out to be with us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me on.
So, Tony, Tell us about everything that Apple unveiled this week. It wasn't just the iPhone.
No, it wasn't just the iPhone. It was, I think they spent about 2 hours, all in all, unveiling stuff. Obviously, as expected, the iPhone 5 was the big news. But they also rolled out new iPod Touch devices, which are a little more. They really bumped up the hardware on the iPod Touch, so now it's actually more on par with like the iPhone 4S, and it's going to have Siri capabilities and different things like that. They also rolled out new iPod Nanos, which I personally was a little bit disappointed in because they changed the form factor into more of a rectangular shape, and the previous iPod Nano is a square, and a lot of people, myself included, use it as a watch. And I think there's a lot of potential there if they built on that and capitalized on its use as a watch, but instead they went a different direction. And Apple also made a big deal out of their re-engineered earbuds. The iPhones and the iPod Touches always come with their the Apple earbuds that go inside your ears, and these are a little bit different shape. I haven't had a chance to try them out yet. I'll be interested to see how they work and how comfortable they are, though I've never really been a fan of the headphones that go in your ears.
Tony, you mentioned that the new iPods. It sounds like they're doing everything but being a phone?
Well, with the iPod Touch, I would say yes. I mean, I haven't personally played with one yet, but from the way they described it and from what I've seen of the specs on paper, it seems like the new iPod Touch is essentially an iPhone 4S without the phone capability.
Oh, so that's interesting. I gather the price point must be significantly different, which is why they're playing that up.
Well, I believe the iPod Touch, if I remember correctly, starts at like $300, which is sort of steep, except for that you don't have a contract and stuff. So if you get an iPhone 4S, you can get an iPhone 4S for $100 or $200, but that's under contract. The iPod Touch, you don't have to have a contract. But what's interesting about the pricing is there's still this rumor floating out there that Apple's got this iPad Mini waiting in the wings to introduce at some point. And if that rumor were to pan out, we'd expect that device to cost somewhere in the $250 to $300 range in order to be competitive with the other smaller tablets. And that would seem to conflict with the iPod Touch. I don't see how you could have an iPod Touch and an iPad Mini both at the same price point.
Right. But it's interesting. I mean, do you feel, you're a lot closer to this than we are. With the proliferation of the iPhone, do you see the iPod going away at some point? Do people have iPods and a phone?
I don't think people do. Again, I have the iPod Nano watch, but in general, I see the iPod Touch more as a device that I might give a child that I don't want to give a smartphone to yet. But that's such a small window to me because even my 10-year-old has a smartphone because I want him to be able to call home if he's out with his friends or whatever. I don't know, but it doesn't seem to me like Apple plans on phasing out the iPod anytime soon.
And about the earphones, personally, I always have a problem keeping the current earphones in my ear when I'm at the gym. Did they design these differently? Have you at least seen them, even though you haven't tried them out yet? Do they go over the ear?
I've seen the pictures, and what it looks like is there's, instead of the round thing that you have to, sort of stick in your ear, it seems like they sort of squished it, and it's a flatter piece that would, it looks like it would be more comfortable. It looks like it would be more comfortable to put into your ear, and hopefully it would stay in better. I am looking forward to trying it out. But again, I actually prefer, the old school, big, huge headphones that cover your whole ear.
I hear you. So So obviously the star of this announcement was the iPhone 5, which my producer tells me is really the iPhone 6, so you can clarify that for me. But maybe you can tell us how this has improved over whether or not you feel it's improved over the iPhone 4S, and some of the key features that you like or dislike.
All right. Well, it is the 6, and you had the original iPhone, then eventually there was the iPhone 3G, the 3GS, the 4, the 4S, and now the 5. So, it's the 6th phone, even though the numbering system doesn't really follow. The big news, most of the big news was already leaked, which I think is part of what made it seem anticlimactic or a little bit boring to some people. Is we already knew what was going to come. The biggest news was that for the first time since the original iPhone, they've changed the size of the display. It's not any wider. They just made it a little bit taller. Basically, it makes it more of a true 16:9 ratio for an HD video if you hold it in landscape mode. It gives you enough space for an extra row of icons on the display, and they stretched the display, but they maintained the pixel density, so it's still a Retina display. The other big news, which really was the most important news to me as an iPhone user, is that they added LTE, 4G LTE capabilities. Having switched from AT&T to Verizon's 3G is it's just abysmally slow. It annoys me all the time. And I have 4G.
You have Verizon too, so I understand where you're coming from. Tell us what that means. 4G LTE.
Well, I have the 4G iPad with Verizon, and sitting here in my office, in the greater Houston area, if I use the speedtest.net app, I get about 0.83 megabits per second using the 3G on the iPhone 4S, but my iPad's getting 12, 13 megabits per second. It's a huge difference, and so I'm really looking forward to having an iPhone that has that speed in it.
Yeah, that's amazing. Now, how did they do that? Is that just the technology in the phone, or does that have anything to do with the Verizon wireless network itself?
Well, Verizon already has LTE. There's a huge number of LTE, 4G capable Android devices and other devices already available from Verizon. With LTE in the iPhone, Apple, didn't really leapfrog anybody. Most of this is really just playing catch up to what the capabilities that other devices already have.
Yeah, when we come back from the break, I'd like you to give us your opinion of that's the point you raised there is a key point. I see all these commercials and my friends that have these other devices that I'm not sure what the politically correct word to use here is, but really bothers me that they've got these other devices, and I thought I had the top of the line, and they're showing me these features that are really significantly better. But if you can hold that thought, we're going to take a break. Once again, you're listening to Tech Talk live from our offices in New York. I'm Tom DiOria, and as you can tell, we're discussing the new iPhone and its competition, which we're going to get to after the break with Tony Bradley. Welcome back to IMI-TechTalk on KFNX AM 1100. I'm Tom DiOria, and this week we're discussing the iPhone 5 and its competition with our guest Tony Bradley. Give us a call at 277-5369, and if you're outside the 602 listening area, give us a call toll-free at 1-866-536-1100, or you can send your questions to techtalk at IMI-US.com. We'll try and get them on. Before the break, we were talking about some of the key features of the iPhone. One of the things that Tony mentioned was the new iPhone for Verizon having 4G LTE. So I guess, Tony, that means that if you're an AT&T user, you already have that. Is that true?
Well, no. There's a little bit of a confusion there. T-Mobile, has a whole big marketing campaign about their 4G network, which technically isn't 4G. It's a faster 3G network. And AT&T has that same technology, which is the HSPA Plus network. When the iPhone 4S first came out, when iOS 5 first came out, it still detected AT&T's network as 3G, and AT&T lobbied Apple to change that in an iOS update. So it detects it as 4G. If you're an AT&T subscriber and you connect to the HSPA Plus network with your iOS device, it says 4G, but it's not really 4G. So even on AT&T, the new iPhone will be much better because you'll actually be connecting to the real LTE 4G network.
That's interesting. Thanks for clarifying that. What about Wi-Fi? Did they improve that at all?
The Wi-Fi is supposed to be greatly improved as well. They improved it to dual band on the 802.11n networks, which 802.11n is capable of working in the 2.4 gigahertz network range as well as 5 gigahertz. But previous versions of the iPhone were only capable of working with the 2.4 gigahertz range, which has a lot more interference on it. You have microwaves, baby monitors, cordless phones. Almost every device in your house that is wireless at all or uses any frequencies at all is in that 2.4 gigahertz range. So being able to operate on 5 gigahertz should have less interference. It's supposed to be significantly faster now, so that actually is another thing that I'm looking forward to testing out in the real world to see how it, if it lives up to the hype.
Tony, we just got an email question from Joe who's asking us, did they change, is the size bigger, the footprint of the 5 versus the 4S?
It is, because it's taller by, I want to say, about half an inch. And again, the width is the exact same, but it's taller.
So you feel that's going to make it a little bit more unwieldy, or is it insignificant?
Personally, I think that is a little. It'll be insignificant because it's the width is what you're really holding on to. Apple is conscious among all the smartphone developers. Apple is the one that seems most focused on making sure that you can still use the device one-handed. So a lot of the other smartphones are going to 4.5, 4.8, 5-inch screens, and they're these gargantuan devices, which are great for some things. If you're watching Netflix or trying to surf the web, that bigger display pays off. But if you're just trying to use it one-handed, the iPhone is a better fit because your thumb can actually reach the whole display.
Yeah, that's a good point. We've got a question here from Bethany, also wants to know, she heard or I guess read that they changed the, I don't know, she says power cord, but that's not what it is. The thing that connects to the power source, that they changed that and she can't use her iPhone 4 connection?
That's correct. One of the things they did, and this is part of, on top of making the screen taller, they also managed to make the device thinner. And they had to squeeze in a bigger battery. They had to squeeze in the LTE technology. And so one of the things they did was to make that connector smaller. They've used that same, 1-inch wide 30-pin connector since the original iPod or whatever, 10 years ago. So this is the first time they're changing the connector. It's about the same width as a micro USB, but it is an Apple proprietary connector. The nice thing about it is there's no upside down. You can plug it in either way. It's reversible, so you don't have to fumble around trying to figure out which way is the right way. The downside, of course, is if you have a iPhone, a connector in your car, if you have one of, some sort of a boom box that docking boom box that you plug your iPod or iPhone into, those things aren't going to work anymore, or you're going to have to get this adapter. And Apple has an adapter. They're calling the new connector Lightning. So there's a connector that converts from the Lightning connector to the old-fashioned, the current iPhone connector, but it's like $30. So I mean, I think the price of the adapter is a little steep, in my opinion.
Now, do you feel that they're going to move in that direction as they make new releases of the iPad and such?
Absolutely. And I also, I don't really know what the timeline is, but I also expect that we'll see a flood of devices from all of the accessories and peripheral makers. Will catch up pretty quickly. So I would guess that even by the holidays, you're going to see docking alarm clocks and docking boom boxes and everything else that are already converted to the new connector.
Okay, let's change gears just a little bit here. We understand that they came out with a new iOS. Can you tell us about that and why they did it?
Well, every year they roll out iOS and iPhone at about the same time. So the new iOS 6, will actually hit the street next Wednesday, ahead of the iPhone 5. iOS 6 has a lot of neat features, and again, none of them are all that revolutionary. I mean, a lot of them are things that I've admired in other platforms, and I was like, well, I wish my iPhone could do that. Well, now it can. Like, you'll be able to be recording a video and take a snapshot at the same time without having to switch back and forth. It's got a panoramic capability for the pictures now as well. There's some cool features in terms of, like, if a call's coming in and you're in the middle of something else, you're in a meeting, you can press a button and it will text the person back. It'll still send the call to voicemail, but it will text them back with a preset message that basically says, hey, I'm busy, I'll call you back later. So that's kind of nice instead of just ignoring the phone call. Trying to think of what else is. I mean, there's a lot of updates in iOS 6. With iOS 6, there's some changes to Siri, where it can now, you can now ask for, like, sports stats, you can ask for movie information. They tied it in more with restaurant information and like the Open Table app. So you can actually use Siri to even book a table at your favorite restaurant. And Siri is now going to work with the iPad 3, the new iPad, whatever you want to call it. So they've expanded that too. So there's a lot of the features and updates are going to work with the existing, at least with the iPhone 4S. I think most of them will still work with the iPhone 4. There might be some that won't. So depending on what you're looking for, the iPhone 4S with the latest update to iOS 6 might suffice. Maybe you don't need to go get the iPhone 5.
Now, Tony, you're really in touch with all that's going on here. Were there major things that you thought were going to happen that didn't?
Well, I think the two biggest things that were, there was a lot of speculation around that didn't happen. One was NFC, the near field communications, which is the payment system. So Google has built it into some of the Android smartphones. This NFC technology that lets you use your smartphone basically as a credit card and be able to pay for things. I think it's cool, and I think that it has potential. It really isn't that widely used yet, so I don't think that was a big miss. I think Apple might be sort of waiting to see if this is actually going to catch on in the mainstream. And the other thing was, a while back, Apple bought a company called Authentic, which specializes in making fingerprint scanning sensors for mobile devices. So there was a lot of speculation that the iPhone might have a fingerprint scanner to unlock the phone, and that didn't happen. I still expect that they're at least working on that, because it would seem that would be why they bought the company in the first place. Maybe we'll see it in the next generation iPad. I do think it would be a good direction to go. I mean, I think it would be nice to be able to do something other than a 4-digit PIN or a password and be able to just hold your thumb down on the phone to unlock it.
Do you think that's something, either one of those could happen in an app on the iPhone 5, or do they need a new release of the hardware?
For both of those, I think you would need a new release, because you'd need an NFC chip inside the device, and you would need to have a fingerprint scanning sensor. I suppose that, some third party, there's probably a way you could do a fingerprint thing that would use the camera or, the touch sensor. There's probably a workaround for that. But I don't think we'll see it until the next hardware.
So I assume you're getting one. I'm getting one. Do you recommend that people move from their 4 or 4S to the 5?
Well, I did pre-order mine, primarily, like I said, for the LTE. That was all it needed for me to sell me. People who already have the iPhone 4S, again, I think it's worth taking a look at iOS 6 when it hits on Wednesday, and then deciding, whether or not the iPhone 5 is really necessary. I mean, it is faster, faster wireless, it's faster Wi-Fi, it's faster processor, but you're going to get a lot of the benefits just with iOS 6. So I don't think that people with the iPhone 4S necessarily need to upgrade, but I think you're going to see a lot of people with iPhone 3Gs and 3GSs who are running out and getting the iPhone 5.
Okay, we're going to take a break. This is Tom Dioria. We're live on IMI's Tech Talk on KFNX AM 1100. Please stay tuned. We're going to be right back after these messages. Welcome back to IMI's Tech Talk on KFNX AM 1100. I'm Tom Dioria. We're discussing the iPhone 5, and we're going to be getting into its competition with our guest, Tony Bradley. Give us a call at 277-KFNX or toll-free at 866-536-1100. Tony, we got a couple of questions before we get into talking about the competition. Apple changed the maps that they use?
Yes. They obviously they are not really buddies with Google these days because of their battles over Android and whether or not Android copied iOS. But it's been a sort of a tenuous relationship. So they still had Google Maps as the mapping app, and they still had YouTube baked into iOS. Well, with iOS 6, the YouTube app isn't going to be baked in anymore. You'll have to actually download the YouTube app that's developed by Google, and they replaced the mapping. So they've got their own 3D maps, their own turn-by-turn navigation, and really the nicest thing about that for me, I haven't played with theirs yet, but I'm really hoping it's accurate and it's good, because I use the Garmin Street Pilot app, but it's not tied in with everything else in iOS. So the nice thing about these new maps and the turn-by-turn navigation is that when someone sends you an address in an email and you tap on it, it'll just automatically give you the turn-by-turn navigation. Or you can just say, "Hey Siri, find me the nearest gas station," and it'll take you to the turn-by-turn navigation automatically. So I'm looking forward to trying it out.
Terrific. And that question was from Terry, and then this question is from Chris about iOS 6 and the iPad. They read somewhere that it has a feature where you can brand and lock it down. I'm not sure exactly what that is. So
there is a feature. It's for enterprise customers. There are features in iOS 6 that would let a company put their company logo as the image background and lock it so that can't be changed. And there are features that would let an IT department basically specify, that this is the only app that can run on this device. So from a business perspective, maybe I want to use iPad as mobile ordering units or for healthcare. There's a lot of different ways that you can use them, or use them in a kiosk sort of situation in a lobby, where you don't really want people to be able to install other apps or do other things with it. You just want it to do what you want it to do. So Apple put those features in there to let companies basically have more control over how the iPad is used.
Okay, we've got more questions, but I'd like to get some of your impressions of the competition, what people should think about. I mean, the holiday season's 3 months away, but Motorola's got stuff out there, Nokia's got stuff out there. Maybe you can give us some input on that.
Well, sure. It seemed like Motorola and Nokia in particular seem to sort of go out of their way to have their launch events ahead of the iPhone 5 and kind of get their news out there. There are, obviously there's 1,000 options out there for someone who's looking for a smartphone for the holiday season. Even just on the iPhone side, now that the iPhone 5 is coming out, everything else steps down. So the 3GS is being phased out, but you'll now be able to get the iPhone 4 for free on contract, and you can get the iPhone 4S for $100 on contract, and then the iPhone 5 starts at $200 on up. So you have some options there just on the iPhone 5 side. Then you've got Android options and Windows 8, Windows Phone 8 options that are going to be coming out, and you've got BlackBerry options. So there's plenty of things out there. The Samsung Galaxy S3 is a very popular device out right now. And then you've got, like you mentioned, the new Motorola's and the new Nokia devices.
Tony, going back to I'm not sure if there's an iOS question or just an iPhone question, but Connor sent a note, said that he had read about a feature called Passbook, and had something to do with I'm reading it here, putting all your stuff in one place. I'm not sure what stuff he's talking about.
Well,
are you familiar with that?
Yes, and it's an iOS 6 feature. It's not an iPhone 5 thing, so you'll have it even on the iPhone 4S, the iPhone 4, whatever. And it seems to be sort of the surprise of iOS 6, because when they first announced it, it seemed like, why would that be a big deal? But it really seems to have caught on and have a lot of potential. Basically what it is you might have, like, say, the Starbucks app, which has your Starbucks card is tied into there, or you have tickets to the movies or tickets to the Giants game, or you have airline boarding passes. The Passbook app knows all of those things are the kind of things that you would need to scan or whatever, and it collects them all in this one spot. So instead of having to carry your tickets or carry your airline boarding pass, you can just use the Passbook app. But the cool thing about it is time and location aware. So it actually realizes when you walk into a Starbucks, and it would pull up the Starbucks stuff automatically, or it knows when you're in the airport, and it would pull up the airline boarding pass automatically. And so the airlines have already kind of gotten on board and embracing this concept. So again, it sounds very cool, and we'll have to basically see what happens when it hits the street.
I guess the next time you're on the show, we'll have to talk about these things and see if they really work, which leads me to the next question that, who sent this? Nobody's telling me. Rudy sent a note here about another thing called, well, we know what FaceTime is, but do they now have that so you could do a FaceTime conversation on the iPhone 5? Was it there before?
Well, you already had FaceTime, but it's been restricted to only over Wi-Fi connections. You couldn't use FaceTime over a 3G or 4G cellular connection. With iOS 6, you'll now be able to engage in a FaceTime conversation over the cellular network as well, which opens it up so you can basically have a FaceTime conversation from anywhere instead of having to wait until you're in the hotel room or whatever. The downside for AT&T customers is that AT&T is using that as a bargaining chip to basically force people to the new shared data plan. So if you have any of the old data plans, you're sticking with, they're not going to let you use FaceTime over your cellular connection. You have to switch to the new plans to get that.
So that's not a problem with Verizon then?
That is not a problem with Verizon. But Verizon has its own problems. One of them being, even on the 4G connection, you still aren't going to be able to do a voice call and surf data at the same time, which has always been a problem with Verizon and Sprint, and it still is.
You just answered Jeannie's question. Keep going.
And the other thing was that with Verizon, if you have an unlimited data plan that you've been grandfathered on and you've stuck with, if you buy the iPhone 5, Verizon is going to force you to abandon that unlimited plan.
Really? Oh, I didn't know that. That's not good. But I'm sure the features may outweigh that. It sounds like it's going to get a little bit more expensive.
Perhaps. Personally, I'm not a huge fan of unlimited plans from most people. I mean, obviously they're unlimited, so you can use them, but the vast majority of people don't use enough data to actually get their money's worth out of that.
Tony, I've been remiss. I'm getting yelled at here by my producer. If our listeners want to follow up with you, what's the best way to do that? And maybe you can tell them a little bit more about where they can read what you write every so often, or every week,
Sure.
or every day.
Well, as you talked about at the beginning, I write the network column. It's 2 words, so it'll play on words, for PCWorld. So if you go to PCWorld.com, you'll find me. We actually just rolled out a completely revamped PCWorld.com site, so you should check that out. You can also find me on Twitter. I'm the Tony Bradley. I have a Facebook page, a Google page. You can a Google Plus page. And if you just want to contact me directly, it's just Tony, Tony, at s3kur3.com. That's my little hacker speak version of secure.
Tony, thanks a lot for being with us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. Take care.
And thanks again for everybody for listening. And don't forget to tune into Tech Talk next week at 6 p.m. in New York on KFNX AM 1100. And happy Rosh Hashanah to all our listeners out there. Have a great week, and thanks for listening.
All right.